Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and I'm finally coming with my preview breakdown of this upcoming Commanders versus Chiefs game Monday night in Kansas City. I want to do a full breakdown into how the Commanders could potentially pull off a huge upset over the Chiefs, even without our franchise elite quarterback in Jayden Daniels. Of course, we're going to dive into the most important matchups and stats. I'm going to give y'all a full-time injury report before we even get into all of that. And the way I'm structuring this, and maybe I'll structure the rest of my preview videos for upcoming games for the rest of the season like this, to where I present the other team's advantages. Where do they have the advantage? And then we're going to dive into all of the advantages that the Commanders have. You'll probably be surprised by where we may actually be able to find a way to, even this thing out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And maybe catch them by surprise. Of course, I also want to include some historical stats between the Chiefs and the Commanders as well. Like, how has it gone anytime that we've played them, specifically in Kansas City as well. And also Marcus Mariota. You know, when he used to play for a different team, the last time he played the Chiefs, he won. And of course, I'm going to give my prediction at the end. Also gonna show y'all how everybody else is feeling about us. Like, what's the line? Like, how severe of underdogs are we and stuff like that? But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I've noticed that around like 30-something% of y'all are not subscribed. So make sure you hit that subscription button, because again, man, it's free for y'all and it means the world to me. So if you can just take a couple of seconds to make sure you subscribe and hit that like button, I don't think y'all understand how much that means to the channel, bro. And then shouts out, of course, to the watch, to the end gang. Shouts out to my late night crew. I'm recording this at 4:22 a.m. So shouts out to all of y'all that are up with the vampire hours, even though technically this is about to start to get into the early morning crew. So shouts out to y'all too as well. And of course, shouts out to Noti gang that's on these videos immediately after I release them. Now, without further ado, let's go and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. First of all, here are your captains going into this game. You have Luke McCaffrey at wide receiver, Javon Kinlaw, and Jacob Martin. I'm guessing Jacob Martin is technically like the special teamer, because they typically have one offensive player, one defensive, and one special teams. But Jacob Martin was one of our best defensive players against the Cowboys, so he's going to play a lot on defense. That is not a pure special teamer. And then again, Luke McCaffrey is your offensive one, Javon Kinlaw is your defensive one. And Rush Mayo brings up a good point. He said good for them, but he said that I actually had thought that the Commanders were going to make McCaffrey a captain for the Broncos game because of his dad's connection to the team. I would have guessed that too. I don't understand why Luke McCaffrey versus the Chiefs specifically, because we rotate captains throughout the entire regular season. I wonder why they made Luke McCaffrey a captain going into this game specifically, especially with Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel coming back. Which, speaking of, now let's dive into the Commanders injury report, and then of course we're going to dive into the Kansas City Chiefs one as well, because I don't know if a lot of y'all know this, the Chiefs are missing some really important players coming into this game, and that may even the odds a little bit. But before we get there, shouts out to the Commanders. Let's dive into our injury report first. And of course, as you can see, Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel are both back. They don't even have injury designations. They are in full go. They participated in every practice fully all week. So now this will be our first time having both wide receivers healthy since what, like midway of the week 3 game against the Raiders? Like, it's been that long, bro, since Terry McLaurin didn't know how to hot step, ended up getting his ankle pulled, and then that's what hurt his quad, hip flex, or whatever situation has left him out for forever. He ended up not getting the touchdown, even though I felt like he actually did earn that touchdown on the field. It is what it is. Out of the way, most importantly, we now have Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel back, and like I've already discussed all week, bro, that's gonna make our run game so much better. I know a lot of y'all are thinking, how do receivers help in the run game? Well, like I've been telling y'all since really like the past week and a half, 2 weeks, bro, especially with that Bears game, with how they played against us, bro. Teams play us differently without threats on the outside of receiver, bro. The Cowboys ran the least amount of man coverage in the entire NFL leading up to that game last week, and they nearly ran it 50% of the time, one of the highest rates of any team in the entire NFL in a singular game this season, because they realized, hey, why don't we just send 7-8 guys, send more guys than they can block to stop the run, and then just dare Jayden Daniels to somehow find an open receiver, and we're just going to trust that our DBs can stop man coverage one-on-one with these guys because there's no Terry, there's no Debo out there, there's not even a Noah Brown. Shouts out to Robbie Chosen for trying to step up, but my point is we couldn't run the ball because the Bears and the Cowboys were like, we dare you to throw the ball. We're going to focus on stopping the run. We're going to have designate more bodies to stop in the run, and we're just going to dare you to pass. I know Jaden Daniels is an elite quarterback, but he can't throw it to himself, and it's been working. But now that you potentially have Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel back, of course, not having Jaden Daniels is a big loss, but hey, man, now we can finally probably run the ball again. Mind you, before that Bears game, we were the #1 run offense in the entire NFL. There's no coincidence that after Debo Samuel's a shell of himself against the Bears, he almost technically didn't play in that game, and then he didn't play at all against the Cowboys. Terry McLaurin's been out for a few weeks. There's no coincidence that suddenly teams that couldn't stop the run like the Bears and the Cowboys could suddenly stop the run against us. That's because we had no threats on the outside, and both of those teams were just like, we're going to do everything we can to stop the run and just dare you to do anything else. Also, if you notice, Samuel Cosmi carries no injury designation as well, so that means he's good to go, even though originally he did have some sort of like a back injury that popped up, but he only missed Thursday's practice. Then he practiced full Friday and Saturday, so he is great to go. Thank goodness. And also, I don't know if you've noticed, but Kosi Yankov is also out with a hamstring injury, but this is not like a starter. This is not even a heavy rotational player, so that's not a big loss, but of course, any loss is a loss. We're not just going to sit here and brush over that as if that's not a loss, but it's not like potentially losing Daron Payne, which is the biggest worry. The biggest hoorays are Terry, Debo, and Cosmi, great to go. The biggest, whoa, watch out, is Daron Payne with a toe injury, bro. That definitely concerns me, even though he is questionable. So maybe he will play. We'll see. But even if he does, maybe he'll be banged up doing it. Maybe they'll learn their lesson from the Dorrance Armstrong injury where they forced him to play after he didn't participate in practice all week, just like Daron Payne this week didn't participate in practice in any day. And then he ends up getting hurt worse than he even was before going into that Cowboys game. Now he's on IR, maybe because of the Dorrance Armstrong situation and how they handled that. Maybe they'll be precautionary with Daron Payne. We'll see. Because again, he didn't practice all week with a toe injury, and we better pray. I'm telling you, I hope he plays. Again, they may not let him, but we need him Monday night versus the Chiefs, bro. Because not only do we need him just in general, especially with our top 3 edge rushers already out, and us having to rely on more of like a 3-4 defense instead of the 4-3 defense that we were originally running this season, because our top 3 edge rushers are now out. Like, we've had to do a complete 180 on the defensive scheme that we ran in with. We had a 4-3 those first few weeks, and we were looking good. We could stop the run. Our defense didn't look horrible. It looked like it was better than last year. Then suddenly your top 3 edge rushers are injured, and of course also one of your starting safeties in Will Ayers. Now we have to switch to a 3-4 defense, and of course we're struggling. I mean, I think Joe Wood Jr., there are a lot of things he could do better. I think our personnel does have some natural weaknesses, but again, I blame injuries more than anything else as to why our defense is this horrible. But again, we're switching from 4-3 to 3-4. Mind you, Daron Payne is a big part of that 3-4 defense. If he can't go, now we're just like, man, what can we run? We can't run number 4-3. We can't run the 3-4. So hopefully Daron Payne plays, bro. And also on top of everything, Daron Payne is coming off of his best game of the season, arguably, against the Cowboys, and seemed to really start to catch a rhythm and heating up. And I want to see him continue his high level of play. I don't want any interruptions or any setbacks, please, bro. So even if he doesn't play against the Kansas City Chiefs, hopefully he'll be back the week after that versus the Seahawks. Dan Quinn even spoke on Daron Payne. He said, quote, he is dealing with a toe that's bothered him, so just kind of working through that to get him into the spot, but I'll know more over the next day and a half, unquote. So again, we probably won't find out until literally the day of, like sometime Monday evening or something like that. We'll see. And also, if you haven't noticed, suddenly our starting kicker, Matt Gay, is on the injury report with a back issue as well, and he did not participate in practice, the final practice of the week, Saturday as in yesterday, October 25th, and he is questionable as well. Hopefully we can have our kicker for this game. We'll see how that goes. And we can't just skip over the fact that Jaden Daniels is out of this game. I briefly mentioned it, but I still want to talk about it. Like, shouts out to this Chiefs fan on Twitter. He said, missing your superstar quarterback for Monday Night Football at Arrowhead against a buzz-solving offense and a crowd with an average BAC of 0.2 is not where you want to be in life. Shouts out to Tay and Todd Podcast. They said Marcus Mariota throwing to Chris Moore in the Chiefs game isn't exactly how I saw this season going. Luckily, Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel are coming back, so Chris Moore is definitely going to get moved down the depth chart, but at a certain point in that Cowboys game, he looked like at worst wide receiver too, so he's probably still going to be out there. We'll see. But shouts out to the weekly audible, because I know some people were saying we need to force Jaden Daniels out there for this Chiefs game if he was even halfway decent or healthy. Of course, I said no. I say you keep him out until he's fully 100% ready to go. And weekly audible said Jaden missing another week and playing the rest of the season is way better than Jaden Daniels starting Monday night and getting a higher risk of re-injuring something or making things even worse. And I completely agree. Now, moving on to the fact that we have our top receivers back, bro. We just can't gloss over that, man. John Kahn wrote an article titled on ESPN, Commanders get receivers McLaurin and Samuel back versus the Chiefs, bro. An entire article just designated just specifically to this topic alone because it's that important, bro. The Washington Commanders will finally have both of their top two receivers available Monday as Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel will play against the Kansas City Chiefs. Both players were full participants the past 3 days of practice, and Coach Dan Quinn said they will play. McLaurin has missed the past 4 games with the right quad injury, while Samuel missed last week with a bruised heel that bothered him in the previous game as well. Again, he was a shell of himself against the Bears. I don't even count him as out there. He was on a pitch count. They played him less. Even when he was out there, he was slow and hesitant. That wasn't the same Deebo Samuel. It's a boost for a team that has dealt with numerous injuries. One reason it is 3-4 heading into the game against the 4-3 Chiefs. The wide receivers return helps backup quarterback Marcus Mariota, who is making his third start this season in place of injured Jaden Daniels, out with a right hamstring injury. Continuing with the article, skipping ahead a little bit. McLaurin has caught 10 passes for 149 yards and 0 touchdowns in 3 games. Mind you, his best game of the season was with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, so maybe there's something there. We'll see if Marcus Mariota can tap back into that for this Chiefs game. Samuel leads Washington with 34 catches for 315 yards and 3 touchdowns. And another wide receiver, Noah Brown, hasn't played since week 2 and was placed on the injury reserve on October 15th. But again, I don't know why people still keep bringing him up, because it's not even just Noah Brown coming back healthy. My main thing is, can he stay healthy? Sure, maybe in a few weeks he'll be back, maybe say for the Dolphins game in Spain. But how long will that last? I'm rooting for him, but I'm not dependent on him. Those are completely different things. Washington's offense has been productive for most of the season, even with his injuries. The Commanders ranked 10th in scoring and 13th in yards. They also ran 7th in yards per play, but 24th on third downs. That's our downfall. We're going to dive into all of that when we get into the stats as well. They also remain second in rushing yards per game, but in the past 2 weeks, their running backs have averaged 3.6 yards per carry compared to the 6.6 yards per carry, which was first in the NFL in the first 5 games, and 66.5 yards per game these past 2 games. In both of those games, both Chicago and Dallas was ranked 28th and 30th, respectively, in rushing yards allowed per game, crowded the box, and dared them to throw, like I already spoke on. And then Cliff Kingsbury said, quote, and basically said everything that we were all thinking and that I've tried to explain to y'all, but I feel like he worded it perfectly. There's no doubt that there's certain coverages that teams aren't willing to play when you have guys like that out there on the field, like Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. So they can definitely help open things up as far as the entire offense, not just only the passing game, but the run game as well. And then moving on, Dan Quinn said that having Terry and Deebo back in the offense is a big deal. I completely agree. They both affect the offense in different ways, and their presence has ripple effects that are felt throughout the entire unit. I agree. And I mean, I just wanted to show you this chart right here, bro. Shouts out to Oblong for bringing this to my attention and saying that Jaden Daniels receivers have not helped him at all this season. This is why getting Terry and Deebo back matters so much, bro. When you're looking from the left side of the screen, from bottom to top, we're talking about dropped yards, percentage of total yards, just because of receivers just dropping passes. Jaden Daniels led the NFL. So basically, his receivers were selling him more than any other receiving group was selling their own quarterbacks on different teams, bro. Jaden Daniels and Trevor Lawrence were the 2 quarterbacks getting sold the most by their receivers dropping catchable passes. And again, Jaden Daniels was number 1 in the NFL in percentage of yards dropped by wide receivers, and he's nowhere near in missed yards based on the quarterback throwing inaccurate passes. That's Jackson Dart. He's basically out there throwing the ball with his eyes closed, bro. He's out there just doing whatever. Jaden Daniels is somewhere in the middle, maybe like towards the top half of the league in that respect, so that's not bad at all. But boy, his receivers have been doing him bad. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he could do a better job of giving the receivers more catchable balls more often, because again, he's like somewhere like top 15 in that way. But his receivers were literally dead last in as far as dropped yards from his quarterback out of the entire NFL, out of all receiving groups, bro. So again, getting Terry and Debo matters so much, bro. Getting them back, bro. I will prefer Jaden Daniels at quarterback, but Terry and Debo coming back hits big time for this offense potentially. And then also Chiefs-wise, the Chiefs have already ruled out starting left tackle Josh Simmons for Monday night's game against the Commanders and listed guard Trey Smith as doubtful. So he's not likely to play. And just to let you know, I mean, again, you're looking at the injury report right here. I mean, Josh Simmons, now granted, his situation is weird. It's nothing injury related. He's just not showing up. So I know a lot of people were talking about that we should have drafted Josh Simmons over Josh Connolly. We picked the wrong Josh or whatever. I love Josh Connolly. He's getting better and better with each game. If you really watch the tape and don't listen to what Jadeveon Clowney had to say, for some reason in that Cowboys game acting like Josh Connolly was bad, Josh Connolly clearly won that matchup against him. Had him on the ground a few times if we really actually go and look at that tape. But even more, even crazier than that, Josh Simmons is just flat out not showing up to practices and games. I don't know what happened, but he's just away from the team for some super unknown reason. So he's out. That's supposed to be their starting left tackle. He was for the first few weeks of the season. And then your starting guard and Trey Smith is also doubtful. So the Commanders can probably take advantage of that. On top of that, of course, Kareem Hunt. Now he went from not participating on Thursday to limited on Friday and then full on Saturday. So we'll see. He's going to play, but maybe he'll be a little bit banged up. And then everybody else on their injury report, they're pretty much good to go. But going back to that offensive line situation, Mark Bullock brings up a great point that with Dorrance Armstrong, he was playing great before he got hurt. But now, since he's gone more than likely for the entire season, how can the Commanders try to replace him? He has an entire article on Substack that you can dive. He does like a full film session dive into how they're going to switch to a 3-4 front with Luvu playing more edge rusher potentially. You're going to have Johnny Newton maybe playing a little bit of defensive end technically, and Jacob Martin is definitely going to have an expanded role. Now, that's done with the injury report. Before we get to all of the matchups and stats and all of that stuff, everything that's going to matter as far as how this game goes. And again, we're going to start with the Chiefs' advantages for a few minutes, and then we're going to dive into the Commanders' advantages for a few minutes as well. But before we get to all of that, shouts out to Sleeper, man. And with them, you have a chance to 1,000 times your cash on daily fantasy football, bro. Now that we finally have Terry and Debo back again, I think that's going to unlock the run game. So Bill's going to be back to balling out again. And you can pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 1,000 times payout on Sleeper. And right now, new users can even get a free $20 without a deposit on top of the up to 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit using promo code SCORE, that's SCORE, or you can just click the link at the top of the description of this video. And every video on live stream I'll be doing all season. And again, I will be live streaming this Chiefs game Monday night, so make sure you pull up for that. And also, I don't know if y'all know, but you can start a squad on Sleeper, and you can have up to 5 people in that squad. And anytime you make a play, anytime you run like a 2-leg, 3-leg, 4-leg, 5-leg, 6-leg, 7-leg, 8-leg, anything you do with Sleeper, it automatically sends it to the squad, and it's easy. Like, they could just literally click copy and they get your exact same picks and everything, and they can enter it in. It's super quick and simple. I love the squad feature. I'm really surprised that more people don't know about it, so I'm gonna start spreading awareness of the squad feature, bro. It's really great, bro. Somebody does picks and then I can immediately copy it easily. It's like a quick 10 seconds max to go through the entire process. It's beautiful. And then also, I wanted to show y'all some of the interesting stuff that I was getting into, man. This is gonna be my first week of getting pretty frisky, bro, so I'm experimenting. Like, this one is pure receptions, bro. All I need you to do is get the ball and catch the ball. I don't need a certain amount of yards. I just need you to get the ball, man. And I think this one's gonna end up working out pretty well. I just did this right before I started recording this video. I submitted this at like 2 a.m. So these lines should still be the exact same, but I adjusted some of them. Like Terry McLaurin, I put his line down just a little bit further. I think it was 3.5. I think I made it 3. And you could end up turning 10 into $1,042 with this one. All they got to do is catch the ball. We just only need catches. I have over for everybody except for Jahan Dotson. I have them under a reception and a half. So as long as Jahan Dotson only catches 1 pass or less, we should be good to go. So that was a fun one that I wanted to try right there. I also have like another weird one. This one's my riskiest one. This one I went the most aggressive. I put 10. I have the potential to win 5,829, and this is a flex. Without the flex, I think it was like 10,000 or something. So this is that 1,000 times your cash on daily fantasy football through Sleeper that I've been talking about right here. This is one of those plays. This is a very aggressive one though. This one like requires Saquon to get 2+ touchdowns. Same thing with Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson. There's a lot going on this one, but it's a really fun one. I also got a little frisky. I did like an all kicker one right here, trying to turn 10 into 997. If y'all wanted to look at that, if you wanted to follow that one. And then I have another interesting one here as well, where this is all quarterbacks. I'm predicting all of these quarterbacks to not throw an interception. That could turn $10 into 864. Then I also just have another interesting one. This one I put a lot of research into. I'm trying to turn 10 into 261. As you can see, this is a much safer one. So this is one that I'm definitely going to be watching throughout all of Sunday's games. I think this one can hit, bro. This is definitely the safest one. So again, if you just want to follow my picks, I showed y'all and scroll through on the screen. Again, shouts out to Sleeper. Now let's get back to this video and let's dive into these matchups and stats, man. Now let's dive into the most important matchups and stats for this game. Like, where is this game going to be won or lost at? Again, we're going to start with the Chiefs' advantages to go ahead and just get them out the way real quick, because we got some things we got to handle. First of all, offensive ranks wise, this Kansas City Chiefs team is no joke. They started a little slow, but now throughout this season, they're second in points per drive. They're second in yards per drive. They're third in offensive EPA per play. They're second in success rate and second in offensive DVOA right now. So technically, right now, they are the second best offense in the entire NFL. That is scary. And even scarier is the comparison between how they were weeks 1 through 3 and then how they've been lately weeks 4 through 7. It seems like they really have caught fire lately. They figured something out, and that does make them scary. If you can look on the screen right now, you can see weeks 1 through 3, they were ranked in the 20s for most stats except for EPA per drop back. But even then, even that improved going from weeks 1 through 3 to now weeks 4 through 7. Now they're just somewhere around like the top 8 in most stats basically, and they're even first in success rate now when it just comes specifically to weeks 4 through 7 only out of the entire NFL. This is a team that, I just gave you the overall stats with my previous stats. Now, if you look at it in the view of what they've done lately, the past couple of weeks, this looks like arguably the best offense in the NFL. Again, when you're looking at success rate, which kind of takes into account everything going on, this has been the best offense in the last 3 weeks. So the Commanders defense better come prepared, bro. Even on top of that, look at this chart right here of how quarterbacks have performed in expected pass situations. We're talking about expected pass situations is when the expected pass probability on a specific play is greater than 70%. So more than likely like third and longs and stuff like that. We're going from the 5th best quarterback in the NFL with Dak Prescott to now, or no, the 6th, my fault, to now Pat Mahomes, who has been the 4th best quarterback in obvious passing down situations in the NFL, bro. So we definitely got to watch out for that, man. So when it comes to like, we know for a fact the Chiefs are passing the ball. It is third and long, it's second and long, whatever. Pat Mahomes has been the 4th best quarterback in the NFL in those situations. We better come correct. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. He brings up a great point. He said, I'm worried about Patrick Mahomes' ability given the Commanders' fits. Because it's not just him throwing, it's him running as well. Mahomes has thrown for 181 more yards than any other quarterback in the NFL, and he averages 12.8 yards per attempt, double the NFL average of 6.4, and he's got a plus 36.1 EPA on dropbacks, and that's plus 24.3 more than any other quarterback in the NFL, bro. This is, mind you, I just gave you all of that. That's when Mahomes is on the run. He is the best quarterback in the NFL this season when on the run. When he's having to extend plays and things like that, he has been the best quarterback in the NFL at that. And it's not just that, too. Rashee Rice is going to be a problem as well. Rice came back last week on Sunday after he was suspended the first 6 games of the season and was targeted 10 of his 16 routes that he ran. He didn't play a lot. He wasn't on the field a lot. He only ran 16 routes, and they targeted him 10 times out of those 16 times he even attempted to actually run a real route, bro. That is crazy. That is the highest target rate in any single game of his entire career at 62.5%. And Rice caught 7 of those 10 targets, with 2 of them being touchdowns, even though one of them was like a weird shovel play, but that's something you got to watch out for. Kansas City gets very creative. Also, Kansas City is really good on third downs, and that's obviously a huge part of this Mahomes versus Kelsey thing. Shouts out to JP Finley for pointing this out, that of the 31 catches to Kelsey from Pat Mahomes, 20 have gone for first downs, bro. So basically, when in doubt, if Travis Kelce's being targeted, usually results in a first down. The Commanders need to be ready for that as well. Shouts out to Josh Taylor. He brings up a great point. Taking a look at the Commanders' defensive numbers, and there's one that's pretty shocking. Pro Football Focus shows that Mike Sanderstill has given up a team-high 27 catches. Mind you, that's 10 more than Lattimore, who is in second place on the team with 17 allowed. That's 278 yards allowed by Mike Sanderstill and 2 touchdowns. So everybody's mad at Marshawn Lattimore. Technically, Mike Sanderstill, even though he's the only one with interceptions, and he has 2 of them on this season, he has technically been our worst corner. Again, maybe we need to dive into some scheme changes. Maybe Mike Sanderstill needs to move back outside. We'll see. But also, a massive difference for Washington in 2024 versus through 7 games in 2025 is third down offense, bro. This is something we got to fix. Hopefully, having Terry and Debo back, even without Jaden Daniels, we can find a way to fix this. Because in 2024, we had 45% of our conversions. We were 6th in the NFL on third downs with our offense. In 2025 so far, we only have 35%. That's 10% less, and that is good enough for 24th in the NFL. That's not good, bro. And also, the Chiefs' passing defense is the 4th best in the league, only allowing 174 passing yards per game, bro. We have to overcome these things. But now moving on to the Commanders' advantages, continuing on, shouts out to Sleeper NFL. They pointed out the fact that Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo talked about Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt via Gold MCT NFL. He said, quote, "This number 22 guy that has jumped onto the scene is really, really good," unquote. So the Chiefs are watching out for him. And again, like I pointed out to y'all, with Debo Samuel and Terry back, the Chiefs will not be able to stack the box, and Bill may be able to have a bounce back game. The Chiefs are allowing the 7th most fantasy points to running backs this season, so maybe this is the perfect time for him to bounce back. We'll see. So maybe potentially a big Bill game. The stars are aligning for Bill to finally break back out again. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson for pointing out the fact that Laramie Tunsil has been as good as advertised in pass protection, and that trade looks like a winner for AP. Tunsil has allowed a 7.4% pressure rate, which is 10th out of all left tackles in the NFL, his lowest since 2022. And he hasn't given up a single sack this season, despite being one-on-one 82% of the time, which is 8th most out of all left tackles in the NFL, bro. You leave him on the island, and he's handling business. Speaking of that, shouts out to Pro Football Focus right here. Now, this is technically a bigger advantage for the Chiefs, but I do want to point out the fact that a lot of people are somewhat down on our offensive line. Mind you, Pro Football Focus feels like we have the 9th best offensive line, though they feel like the Chiefs have the 3rd best. But I want to remind you that Josh Simmons is out, and even Trey Smith is potentially out as well, bro. So it's not looking good for the Chiefs at all. Even though when healthy, they potentially have the 3rd best offensive line, they're not healthy. This is not going to be the 3rd best offensive line that goes out there and plays against us. So we may actually for real have the advantage in this department. Now, also moving on to our next advantage, and this one's more so like a secret weapon. Dan Quinn said that Jordan McGee gets the green dot if Bobby Wagner isn't on the field. So for any time that Bobby Wagner may not be on the field, Jordan McGee then becomes the middle linebacker that controls the defense. He's the one getting the play call from Joe Wood Jr., telling everybody what they're supposed to do. He's basically the quarterback of the defense, and that's a lot of responsibility on this plate. That's something I didn't necessarily expect. And shouts out to Red Zone in the Lab. I already talked about this in my previous video, but he talked about how ready he is for Jordan McGee to get a bigger role in these upcoming weeks, and really for the rest of his career, hopefully, because versus Dallas, he had the most snaps of his young NFL career with 21. That's still not even a lot. You know, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louisville are playing 50-plus snaps every game, but Jordan McGee finally had 21 snaps, which is, again, the most of his NFL career when he just went against Dallas. He also had the most tackles in his NFL career with 4 because he had the most snaps. He also had his most line of scrimmage stops in his career with 3. So 3 of his 4 tackles were stops at the line of scrimmage. That is incredibly efficient. And even when we're talking about coverage, he only allowed 2 receptions for 4 yards on 6 coverage snaps. And he had an 87.7 defensive grade. You could argue when you're looking at the tape, Jordan McGee was probably one of our best defensive players on the entire team going against the Dallas Cowboys. He needs to play more. Red Zone in the Lab also brought this up. With injuries to the edge and a youth movement needed at linebacker, this 3-4-5-2 4-3-0 look that we're potentially, again, we're going to have to get creative because we can no longer run a standard 4-3 like we used to before our top 3 edge rushers got hurt. So now Frankie Louisville's going to have to move down from middle linebacker, all-ball linebacker, play a little bit more edge rusher. And he's saying this new look will be the new base that gives McGee and Kane Madrano with Wags and Louvu solid learning reps together on the field at the same time. And Joe Wood Jr. even talked about this. He said straight up that they will give Jordan McGee more snaps, as well as finally giving Kane Medrano some snaps as well. And then shouts out to Stephen Lim _DC. He says speed, speed, speed. We've been too slow on defense this year. Give me more Medrano as a sleeper. I want Jordan McGee as an all-ball linebacker on the field as much as possible. He's a better open field tackler than at the very least Frankie Louvu. Again, that Cowboys game, I've talked about this several times since that Cowboys game. Frankie Louvu, one play, somehow in a phone booth, missed a tackle on Javonte Williams. A play or two later, Jordan McGee is out in wide open space and he's able to make the tackle. So, like, Jordan McGee needs to be on the field more. He's faster. He's a more sure tackler at this point as well. And then on top of that, Kane Medrano is a potential tweener to help in coverage, especially against tight ends. Again, as soon as Will Harris got hurt, every team's tight end could eat against us. He was our best tight end coverage guy. I think Kane Medrano can be a guy that can step up and fix that problem for us now that Will Harris is gone for a while, but hopefully he comes back some point this season. We'll see. And then also, speaking of secret weapons, maybe we get to see Treylon Burks for the first time in this game. I mean, Robbie Chosen went out there finally in his first game for the Commanders and looked pretty good for us. Now, granted, he hasn't lived up to his draft projection at all yet, but I don't know if people have really thought about this. But Treylon Burks is the highest drafted wide receiver on this entire roster. Debo was a second rounder. Terry McLaurin was a third rounder. Robbie Chosen, I believe, went undrafted. I'm just going to assume Chris Moore went undrafted. Luke McCaffrey, third round. Jalen Lane, fourth round. Rookie. You know, as a matter of fact, I think Treylon Burks is the only first rounder on the entire team in our receiving group. So there has to be something there talent-wise. Even without Jaden Daniels, maybe Cliff Kingsbury can figure something out and tap into that talent that's lying dormant in Treylon Burks. We'll see. Maybe he finally gets a couple of snaps against the Chiefs. Also, shouts out to Ben Standig for pointing out the fact that Monday night's forecast versus Kansas City includes a 60% chance of rain. And Resh Manuel pointed out the fact that a little rain ain't no thing for Marcus Mariota. Pointed out the fact he brought up this article that even a driving rain couldn't rattle Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota. He threw for 2 touchdowns and ran for another. And number 2 Oregon defeated California 55-16 Saturday night in a drenched Pac-12 opener for both teams. He said, quote, "I've been playing in the rain since I was a little kid. Hawaii has its passing showers, so it really doesn't bother me," unquote. So if there's a rainy game, Marcus Mariota has been raised since a kid to be prepared for that situation. You know what I'm saying? We remember how Jaden Daniels had that game-losing fumble basically against the Bears, and hopefully Marcus Mariota being prepared and having to play in the rain pretty much his entire life, he should be ready to go in those situations. But I trust Jaden Daniels will never, ever make that mistake again in his life, so I'm not worried about that as far as that goes. But it does help, does put me at ease to know that Marcus Mariota is prepared for the rain, because he's been doing it pretty much his whole life. Also, Kravitz on Twitter brings up a great question. He said, how did the Commanders defense hold the Chargers to 10 points? I have a pretty good answer for that, and I think it's relevant to the situation in this upcoming Chiefs game on Monday night. Crazy enough, there are a lot of parallels to that game in this upcoming matchup against the Chiefs. Outside of Jaden being out, the reason this defense looked so good against Justin Herbert and the Chargers was because their top running back, Amarian Hampton, got hurt mid-game, and Kareem Hunt, even though he's going to play, is already hurt. Now, technically, he's their second back to Isaiah Pacheco, but either way, running back a little bit banged up. But the biggest parallel, the most important parallel, is that the Chargers offensive line was super banged up, missing both of their starting tackles, missing several key starters on that offensive line. This Chiefs O-line will be the same exact situation Monday night. This would have been a great game to have Dorrance Armstrong, but at the same time, if there were any game this season where we can get pressure without our top 3 edge rushers and get after the opposing quarterback consistently and force him into some turnovers, some strip sacks or whatever, is this one. So the strongest parallel as to why our defense hasn't looked so good since that Chargers game is that we went against a really bad and banged up offensive line. Remember the Giants week 1? Andrew Thomas, my Georgia dog, was out that game. Their offensive line was banged up, and that was one of our most dominant defensive performances this season. I don't think it's any coincidence that when we go against banged up offensive lines, our defense finally looks like an actual NFL defense that deserves to get paid actual real life money. So we'll see if they can go out there and do the same thing against the Chiefs. We'll see what gives. Now, also moving on, as you're looking at these stats that I just wanted to kind of compare, like the total offense, scoring offense, and all that stuff like there. Shouts out to Zach Selby through the official Washington Commanders website for providing these stats, but I wanted to dive into the Washington history versus the Chiefs, because I don't know if y'all know, but Washington has won a road game in every current NFL city except for one. That is Kansas City. We are 1-10 all-time against the Chiefs in general, including 0-5 on the road since dating back to 1971, y'all. We have not beat the Chiefs in Kansas City ever. And hey, what better time to break a streak? You know, when the Commanders have been down and out and people thought their seasons were starting to go out of order, we just always find a way to break some amazing, ridiculous streak. Remember, the Steelers undefeated, broke that streak. Eagles undefeated, broke that streak. And neither of those Commanders teams were as good as this one right here, especially talent-wise. Again, I feel like the majority of the reason that we're struggling right now are injuries. I feel like if we are a 100% healthy team, I firmly believe we're 5-2. At worst, honestly. Like, I really do. I feel like if Jaden Daniels never hurt, Terry never hurt, Debo never hurt, and we have all of our edge rushers, we're a 5-2 team. I feel like it makes that big of a difference. So again, this team is more talented than even those previous burgundy and gold teams that have defied even larger odds than this one coming into this game. So we'll see. But also, with the win, Washington will move to 3-0 this season against the AFC West. It would be their best record against that division through 3 games since 1986, when they also went 3-0. So we'll see if we can do that one right there. Also, the last time Mariota started versus the Chiefs, I believe he played for the Titans at the time, he ended up winning. I think even at one point they were down 21-3 or something like that. I think it ended up being a comeback or something like that. Something crazy. But either way, another interesting set of stats. Washington is looking to become the first NFC East team to win 3 straight games against the AFC West to start a season since Philadelphia did it in 2017. Washington would just become the 3rd team in the NFC East since divisional alignment in 2002 to achieve the feat. Washington is looking to win against Kansas City for the first time since 1983. And also, Washington is looking to win on Monday night in consecutive seasons for the first time since 2021-2022 season, just to let you know. Now, also, speaking of season, I want to dive into the future of this season because Nick Chavala brings up a great point. The Commanders have the 8th toughest remaining schedule based on opponents' combined winning percentage. You have Week 8 at Chiefs, Week 9 versus the Seahawks, Week 10 versus the Lions, Week 11 the Madrid game. Then you have post-bye. Then you have a home versus Broncos. Then you have Eagles, Cowboys, road versus Vikings, Giants, and Eagles. Just to let you know, that's the schedule. But it's really these next 3 games. And District Divided brings up a great point. If you win all 3 of these next games, again, when we're talking about the next 3 games, Chiefs Monday night, which I will be live streaming, Seahawks, I will be live streaming that as well, and the Detroit Lions game. Between those 3 games, if you win all 3, you're Super Bowl contenders. If you win 2, you're a strong playoff candidate. If you at least just get me 1, we'll see what happens. Game on, and then you win 0, you can honestly say that maybe the season is over, but we'll see. Those are 3 tough opponents, but going down to 3-7 would really hurt our chances of making the playoffs. So we'll see. You got to at least give us 1. And if I had to pick out of the 3, maybe the Seahawks are the most susceptible, but we'll see. Now, for my predictions and odds moving forward. Now, shouts out to Denton Day. He brings up a great point, and I don't know if y'all know, but like immediately after that Cowboys loss, we were like 9.5-point underdogs to the Chiefs. After Jaden Daniels was officially announced to be out a few days ago, that officially changed to us being 12.5-point underdogs. And Denton Day brings up a great point that the last time the Commanders were larger underdogs than that was January 7, 2024 against the Cowboys, where we were 13-point underdogs, and that was Sam Howell's final game with the Commanders, and Dallas won 38-10. Hopefully, we can not have a repeat of that. And then also, of course, if you look at the game preview picks by NFL Network right here, of course, nobody's picking us to win. But, I mean, some of these scores are relatively close. Like Maurice Jones-Drew, 27-21 ain't too bad. You know what I'm saying? You know, we'll see. I mean, a lot of the other ones, though, are like 8+. But, hey, man, Maurice Jones-Drew sees this coming down to potentially the last possession in the game. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and get this out the way. I don't have a specific score prediction for this one, but I have a gut feeling that we are going to surprise people, bro. Even if we don't win, I don't think we're going to go out like we did last week at all, bro. I think we're going to show the league that we deserve some serious respect and send a message to the rest of the league that imagine if this team was actually healthy. Like, I think that's the message we're going to send. Imagine if this team actually had a lot of its top players. Imagine how dangerous we'd be. Imagine what our record would be. And watch out. If this team gets healthy going into the playoffs, they may still be just as dangerous as they were last year. I think this is the game that we send that message. Even if we don't win, I think we make it very interesting. And maybe we even put some fear into the Seahawks who we play next week. And maybe we even get Jaden back for that game. So, Commanders, just go out there, hoop. Don't beat yourselves. That's a major part of this game. Take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs are missing 2 starting defensive linemen. Make sure Pat Mahomes never is able to relax. I mean, mind you, every time he's lost in like the Super Bowl or in big games is because his offensive line has let him down. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl, the Eagles Super Bowl this past one that just happened with my Georgia Dogs getting after him. If you can pressure Pat Mahomes all day, and again, his offensive line is banged up, you always have a chance. And again, even without Jaden Daniels, with Bill finally being able to potentially run the ball now that you have Terry and Debo back, and then the fact that you have Terry and Debo back, we may be able to go toe-to-toe with them in a shootout in this potential game. We'll see if our defense can get some stops again. I think we at the very least make this respectable, and we may find a way to upset these guys, man. Let's go, man. I'm excited. Let's do it. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you about everything discussed in the video. Still on that like button, still on the subscription button, still on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Really appreciate y'all for supporting the channel. If you made it this far in the video, for real, appreciate you. If you're still watching me, hearing me, whatever, salute to you and appreciate you personally. Shouts out to my watch to the end gang, man, for real. Shouts out to my late night crew, but it's really starting to get into the early morning crew as well. So shouts out to the vampire hours and the people that actually wake up at normal adult times, because I don't, you know, I'm about to go to sleep after this video. I'm a night owl, I'm sorry, but shouts out to everybody that's not a night owl, you know what I'm saying? Shouts out to those of y'all too, and even shouts out to Noti Gang, of course, that are on these videos immediately. And of course, make sure you please stiff arm that like button on the way out, and most importantly, let me know in the comment section what your predictions for this game are. Let me know if you agree, disagree with any of my points. Let me know any of my points that you especially liked and why. Let me know your predictions for this game and why. Are there any advantages that the Commanders may have that I may be missed on, that maybe they can help, that's a sort of interesting stat or matchup can help us have a better chance of winning this game as well. Let me know all of that in the comment section. Leave a like on the way out. Appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.